Pathfinder Phase 1 certification course. And today's, I guess you say, lesson is going to be it's Phase 1, Block 1, Module 3, and it's going to be discussing Otzi and Otzi the Caveman and what he carried and some of his gear, along with an 18th century long hunter and Nesmith, George Washington Sears. Go over, says to compare all three of them and the gear they carried, and discuss some of the likenesses within what they carried. So like I said, this is Phase 1, Block 1, Module 3. I apologize if the wind is a little loud. You can't hardly hear me, but we'll get through this. And what I started with first was Otzi the Caveman, and I have that he lived around 3300 BC, over 5,000 years old. He was discovered in 1991 in the Italian Alps. He was doing the research on him. It was actually it was real interesting. Just, you know, someone that long ago, you would think, you know, primitive, very primitive, and no technology or anything like that, and just come to discover the things that he had on him. It was very interesting. You know, he had a flint dagger. It was hefted into an ash wood handle, lashed with rawhide, with a bark sheath on it, and he also was found with a copper dagger. That's one of the things that really kind of blew my mind. There was the fact that they had the ability to, you know, to fashion a copper dagger. Actually, it wasn't a dagger. That was an axe. That's what it says here. Yeah, a copper axe. And from my research, it showed that, you know, that if you had a copper axe, that was kind of like a statement of high society, you know, high standing in the society. So it goes to show, you know, Otzi just wasn't just somebody, you know, walking through the Italian Alps. You know, he was, from what I understand, you know, he was somebody in a society, you know, like a leader, maybe a chief or something. Anyway, it also talks about, you know, his clothing and his cover. You know, he had hay stuff shoes, goat and sheepskin coat, goat skin leggings, bear fur hat, a grass cloak, a sheepskin loincloth. You know, so like where they found him at, you know, he was buried under ice. So it was the fact that, you know, he had his cover and the clothing, like I said, the insulated shoes. You know, and then fur, obviously that's going to be real insulative. Also, he had an unfinished bow and 14 arrows. 12 of them was unfinished. You know, so he knew how to hunt, and, you know, to provide, you know, his food. He carried also 2 birch bark containers. One contained charcoal wrapped in maple leaves. You know, it just goes to show that he was transferring fire. So he had you know, he knew the importance of, you know, having fire and what that meant for one's survival. And the fact that, you know, he was transferring it kind of shows, you know, he was fairly intelligent. He had a fire kit. He had, you know, a tinder fungus, flint, and pyrite for throwing sparks. Also, from some my research, you know, I found that his fire kit, he actually kept that in a, I can't remember the exact term what they called it. It was like a belt. Went around them twice, and he tied it, and it had a little pocket on the inside, which is where he kept his fire kit. You know, his tinder fungus and all that stuff were underneath all of his, you know, his outerwear, to keep it dry. Like I said, you know, he was found in the Italian Alps, you know, snow and stuff. So he knew the importance, you know, of keeping his fire starting instruments dry and out of the weather. He had birch fungus, which I believe was chaga, which is the a true tender fungus, and also has medicinal values as well. So he also knew not just to carry it for a fire starter, but also its medicinal properties. In case he got sick or anything like that. He knew what he had to have to make this journey his own, and whatnot. Like I said, his medicine shows his knowledge of medicinals. He also carried a cordage. He had I can't remember exactly what it was made out of now. I wish I wrote that down. But he had made a cordage. He carried that with him. Here's the belt. As far as the belt goes, which it would be cordage as well. It was long enough to wrap around his body twice. It aided in holding up his legs to help distribute weight. Which, walking in the snow, this is something else I discovered in doing this research. And I guess the mountaineers of our time, they knew this as well. It helps to distribute the weight with your leggings. You can tie them up here on your waist, and as you're trekking through the snow, it builds up. It builds up lots of weight, and so it distributed his weight, through the body. And like I said, it had a pocket where he kept his fire kit. It also included a bone awl for repair, and also a flaker to repair his flint dagger. Fire hard antlers, a wooden handle, which was just flaker to resharpen his knife. And I just thought Otzi, he was very interesting individual to kind of research, just the fact that he didn't have a whole lot of gear on him. He had like his backpack made out of, I think, calf skin backpack, but he said his bare essentials on him. Like I said, he had his cutting tools, his cover, container, combustion elements, and cordage. The 5 C's. He had those on him, and he was prepared to survive in his element. The next section here is the research of the 18th century long hunter. Let's have here that the 18th century long hunter, and this is part of individual carry, and but they also they traveled in groups of 10, 15, 20 guys. So they were able to carry a lot of gear in, but a lot of what I have wrote down is just what mostly that they would carry on their persons, for when they went out on a scout trip or something, just 3 or 4 of them. Because they'd set up a big camp, main camp, base camp, and then they would go out, 2, 3 of them at a time. And what I have is, they had first and foremost, they had a flintlock, shot pouch, a powder horn. In the bag they carried, cleaning kit, a turnkey, which is to work on their flintlock, tallow for lube and cleaning, extra lead balls, extra powder, a brush and pick to clean out the flintlock. They also had in their haversack, they carried a sewing kit or a house folding cordage. It would have been jute, rawhide, or tug, turned hemp, tarred hemp, wooden spoon, a tin cup, cooking pot, which our cooking pot would have most likely been a tin corn boiler, beeswax candle, which that's part of their fire kit as well, and all day rations, which would have consisted of parched corn, salt pork, jerky, ship's biscuit, which is hardtack. They had a neckerchief, and then on their belt, and they had a market wallet on their belt, which a market wallet just kind of looped in over their belt, and you would put your tinder and stuff like dry tinder in that. They carried a fixed blade knife, which that time period would have most likely been a butcher style knife. They carried their fire kit, extra flint and tinder within their fire kit. Had a tobacco tin inside there, which they could have carried their tobacco in. Also could have put tinder and stuff inside of that as well. They carried oilcloth and wool blankets, oilcloth watch coat, which is kind of like what our raincoats would be these days. 1 pound of powder, 1 pound of lead. They had moccasins, leggings, linen shirts, head cover. Like I said, they would go out in parties of 15 to 20 men, so they carried a lot of equipment on pack horses to the station camp, then head out in groups of 2 to 3. So some of the equipment was distributed among the men. And like I said, the lone hunters, they were, they were the men that went out and provided for, like forts and stuff like that. They did the hunting for that. They were pretty much, provided for the forts. Also, went out and kind of discovered a new pass and things like that as well. To be settled. They were the first ones to go out. And just doing my research on the 18th century lone hunter, I discovered that they carried their cordage, containers, cutting tools, combustion tools, as well as their cover. Like I said, they carried a lot of equipment going and setting up their base camp, but as they went out 2 to 3 people, to hunt and trap and those kinds of things, they carried basically the 5 C's along with their flintlock and their shooting accoutrements. So once again, we see a pattern of the 5 C's being carried by the 18th century lone hunter. And then the last section here wants us to research Nesmith, or George Washington Sears. He was kind of a character. I actually read his woodcraft camping book and did a little research online about him as well. And he's one of them kind of fellers. It'd be awesome to hunt, go camping and canoeing with him. But you would sure want to know your stuff because he's kind of particular. Anyway, doing my research here on him, it says here, do not, one of the things he did state in his book is do not wear coarse woolen clothes, which, it'd be kind of itchy and scratchy and not, I guess, comfortable. But it says here, fine woolen, he wore fine woolen cashmere of medium thickness for his coat, vest, and pantaloons, with no cotton lining, 2 soft, thick wool shirts, 2 pairs of fine woolen drawers, 2 pairs of strong woolen socks, light boots, a hat, which during summer, winter, you would wear a woolen toboggan, a soft, warm blanket, soft blanket bag, open at both ends. That way, whenever you set up your camp and instead of sleeping on the hard ground, you had this blanket bag which you would stuff full of debris and lay on that. He carried a 6 by 8 foot waterproof cotton cloth, 2 days rations. Then he carried a double bit pocket axe. One side of his axe was thick, stout edge, for cutting knots and deer loins, etc., things like that. It was the side that he didn't necessarily keep finely honed, and he didn't really didn't bother him to use it to, you know, like I said, to when he's making his bed, to strike a root out there where he wasn't laying on a root. And then one side was fine, keen edge, only for processing wood. He carried a belt knife and then a pocket knife. And it says, he specifically states that it should be of the best quality of shape and temper, and double bladed on the pocket knife. His kit never exceeded 26 pounds for him to say. And he says, I went prepared to camp out any and every night. He carried an oilcloth knapsack, carried rod and reel, lines, flies, hooks, fishing gear. He also carried a 5-piece of tinware. Now, I did state that depending on what he would be doing, if he was just going out, you know, for a few days, he wouldn't carry the whole complete 5 pieces of tinware. It says, you know, he carried all 5 when staying at a permanent camp, and just 2 when camping or cruising. All the rest, all nest into the biggest 2-quart kettle. So he carried a 2-quart kettle, and then, you know, he nested the rest of the stuff. That way, it took up less space. Also, he had what he called a ditty bag. It was a a leather bag, 4 inches by 6 inches, and inside this ditty bag he kept a dozen hooks, 4 lines, 6 yards each, 3 darning needles, a few common needles, a dozen buttons, sewing silk, thread, small ball of strong yarn, sticking salve, shoemaker's wax and beeswax, sinkers, very fine file for sharpening hooks. He had matches in there. He had fly medicine, painkillers, strings, compass, bits of linen, scarlet flannel for frogging, and copper tacks. And as we look here, at Nesmic, he actually carried a lot of the 10Cs. He had his needles, his repair kit, a compass, and things like that. But what the majority and the main bulk of what his kit was, he had his cover elements. He had his clothing, his wool clothing, his tarp. He also had his cutting tools. He carried, believe in 3 cutting tools. It was double bit axe, belt knife, and a pocket knife. And he had his containers, his tinware, his cook kit. He had his combustion. He believed in matches. You don't hear him, any of my research, you don't ever hear him talk about a flint and steel kit or anything like that, but you hear him specifically saying matches throughout most of his book and from the researching that I've done. And then he had multiple redundancies of cordage, in his ditty bag that he kept in his ditty bag. And just through my research of these 3, Otzi the Iceman, 18th century long hunters, and Nesmic, which they all range over a course of thousands upon thousands of years. Otzi was 5,000 years ago, all the way up to the 1700s, the long hunters. And then Nesmic, I think he was born in like 1826, I believe, and then he passed away in the late 1800s. And so that was just a wide range of time. But throughout that time, you constantly see the same patterns. Even far back as Otzi the Iceman, he carried the 5 Cs. The long hunters, they had at least the 5 Cs plus some. Nesmic, he carried the 5 Cs, and then of course some extra stuff along, like he liked to fish, so he carried fishing equipment. But you see throughout this whole time frame here that the bare essential equipment that is being carried. You know, is your cutting tool, your combustion tools, cover, cordage, you know, containers. And the reason being is because, you know, these are the hardest things to you know, to reproduce in the wild. You can do it, but you know, it takes this real time consuming to make a cordage. You know, it's really hard to you know, to make clothing. You know, so your clothing is going to be your first, you know, line of defense when it comes to cover, and that was proven, you know, with Otzi. You know, he didn't talk about him carrying any kind of tarp or anything like that, but he had his clothing. You know, and so doing this research here, it just you know, it kind of opens up your eyes to what the bare minimum what you need, along, you know, with your knowledge, and then, you know, the extra stuff that you add on top of these five things is kind of, you know, not necessarily more of a luxury item, but it's not necessarily something that you have to survive, you know, in a short term, you know, period, 2 to 3 days, 4 days. These 5 essential items here, you have to have. You have to have a cutting tool, you know, a way to start a fire. You know, like I said, good clothing, and you know, you can go from there. And it's a lot mentally, you know, being able to have a fire and warm clothing, you know, in a container to boil water in, to drink. Those are great, you know, things to have in a situation where you have to, you know, be trying to survive for a few days. Anyway, that concludes this section of the Pathfinder Phase 1 certification course. Like I said, that was you know, Phase 1, Block 1, Module 3. And then the next video we'll be continuing on with that, and we'll be moving to Block 2. Anyway, thank you, and like I said, this is Wilson Petty.